Hello and welcome along once again to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the podcast that goes out to play straight after school, but never ignores the shout to come in for its dinner. I'm Stu Joslin, and joining me, as always, is my co-host Alex Greenwood. Greenie, how do we find you tonight?
I'm a little bit tense about the time, because for listeners' information, this is being recorded 2 hours before kickoff in the Euro semi-final, in which England are playing the Netherlands. So we're cutting it a little bit fine. Some might say it was a crazy decision to start recording tonight, but we will never let the pod down. We have our priorities in order.
No, quite right. The show must go on.
Hopefully listeners don't notice any drop off in quality based on the fact that we are clearly rushing to get this done.
This is our first ever sub 20-minute episode, I think we're about to do, isn't it?
It is, yeah, hopefully.
Well, Alex, if you are a little bit peckish after the record and before the match tonight, then you could do far worse than drop into your local branch of our sponsor this evening, which is Wimpy. Listeners to the podcast can quote the code ALRIGHT90s at the counter of any participating branch nationwide to receive 20% off of the Wimpy, Shanty or Delta brunch meals. That's Wimpy, the worldwide symbol of eating pleasure. Many thanks to them for sorting us out tonight.
That's a very apt sponsor for today's episode, isn't it? It's really great to have them on board.
It really is. I was looking at their current list of branches at this specific moment in time. Have a guess where the closest Wimpy branch to both of us is, I would say. I don't think there's any difference in distance between. So have a guess where our local Wimpy is, where we would have to go to take advantage of that offer.
Is there maybe one in the capital in London?
There is, but there is one closer than that to us.
There's not one in Hallavington, is there?
I'm afraid the Hallavington branch closed down about 6 months ago. No, we're off to Hampshire. We're jumping in the car. We're heading to Basingstoke for a good old Wimpy's. So, okay. Yes, absolutely. We will be heading to the Basingstoke branch as soon as we can to take advantage of that fine offer. And so should all of you. Time once again to have a delve into the mailbag and a look at the bulletin board. Alex, I noticed on our Euro 96 episode with Ash Rose from a couple of weeks ago, we've got a new bed for the post bag and bulletin board. Is that right?
We have, yes. I surprised you with a new audio bed that just leads us in, because obviously we used to use the SMTV, hey there, wait a minute, Mr. Postman audio for our mailbag. But now we've changed it to the bulletin board. I thought I should think of a new bed, and that's what was added last time. But I believe it surprised you and you thought your headphones were broken. Is that right?
It did surprise me. I'm thinking of taking them back to the shop anyway. They're made of pork, but they're crackling. So,
well, hopefully our listeners didn't all also think their headphones are broken, and there's been an influx of customers down at Radio Shack looking for new headphones. But it was just a new audio bed. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, now that we've got that cleared up and out of the way, I think we can move on without fear of recrimination.
Well, first things first, Stu, have you been in the office recently, the podcast office?
Not for a while. I did try and open the door a few days ago, but all of the mail and stuff piled up behind it. I couldn't actually force my way in.
Yeah.
So, no, I've not been able to get in there for a few days.
Well, next time you do get in there, you'll notice that we do have a new fax machine, which is a welcome addition to the office, and it means we can now... but it's just replacing the old one, which had been on the blink for a long time. But it means, listeners, you can now, again, contact us using fax. So please do send in all your messages using, well, whether it's fax or traditional post or, all the other ways we have. Just bear in mind that you can now send us faxes again. So that's a nice new addition to the office. Speaking of which, we actually have had our first telefax in on the new machine. And it is, yes, it's from out of the pod again. So another message with an update on the goings on in the murky underworld of our finances, basically, and everything that's going on down at the Masonic Hall.
Right.
So let's see what he says here. Here's a glimpse into the soul of Jeff. The other day at the Masonic Hall, while the High Mason was out playing golf with the Chief Constable, the rest of us sneaked into a special lounge and made ourselves comfortable there. We were chatting about what superpower we would choose if we got the chance. Old Bob Wadswick said he used to want to be able to fly, but what with air traffic control complications and anyway having his pensioner's bus pass, he probably wouldn't be bothered to get up so much. Someone else wanted to be invisible, probably for sleazy purposes. I said I'd like to instantly make my skin transparent to terrify youths cycling on the pavement. Then Jeff said he would like to be able to cure people of any disease by putting his hand gently on their heads. Of course, the rest of us were rather ashamed of our own shallow choices. Just think, said Jeff, stubbing his cigar out in the High Mason's prized aspidistra, how much you could charge for that. So, Stu, what do you think about that? Superpowers. Jeff, he's got some sort of god complex. Some messiah complex, I should say.
It sounds like it. I'd prefer it if he'd chosen a superpower, which means that we could get paid every so often.
Yeah, if you could put that magic hand on our finances, that would be much appreciated.
Definitely, and it's nice to actually have a missive from Dad of the Pod, which doesn't end with him giving Jeff some seed money for some crackpot idea or other. So maybe we're on the turn here. Maybe things are going to get a bit more positive.
Yeah. It sounds like Jeff isn't quite so desperate for finances for startups and whatnot, which is surprising considering the financial doldrums we're in currently after your legal costs from the parking debacle.
Yeah, still working through that. We've still got the legal team on that. So but hopefully we'll be through all the paperwork in the next little while. I'll be interested to hear more about old Bob Wadswick as well, who seems to have come into play over the last couple of missives. Sounds like a very interesting character. So yeah, anything else on him, Dad of the Pod, would be great. I'd like to start my contributions this time with a correction, which comes from legend of the pod, my dad, Glyn Joslin, who says that during the England-Spain penalty shootout at Euro 96, he didn't go in the garden, he went and sat in the car. A crucial correction there that needed to be made, a distinction between the garden and the car. Whether or not he had the radio turned on, he didn't say or couldn't remember, but I would suggest he probably didn't. So if you can imagine, my dad sat in the Mark III Silver Cavalier, parked up outside my grandparents' house while the England-Spain penalty shootout from Euro 96 was going on. That is what actually happened. A couple of other bits and pieces from the weekend just gone. First of all, I went into my local branch of One Stop at the weekend in order to buy a stamp for our Simpsons correspondent Max Goff's birthday card, actually, whose birthday is today. So happy birthday, Max, whenever you get around to listening to this. Here comes another one, as Keith Richards always says. But I went into the shop and I was faced immediately by a massive display of...
There it is. There it is. Previously mentioned on our Euro 96 episode, a Cadbury's Top Deck. You found one.
Yeah, this is a sharing size bar. I didn't share it with anyone. But I have to say, the mix of milk and white chocolate is absolutely superb. I really enjoyed this, my first experience of the Top Deck. And as you can see, it says there in the top corner, limited edition back from 1993. So if you are interested in sampling Top Deck, have a check in your local One Stop because they seem to be carrying them at the moment. And yeah, it was a real nice rush back to the 90s. Also, got my Liverpool Euro 96 double-decker bus from eBay for £4. The bidding didn't go any higher than that, so didn't have to reach any more into the pod coffers. But there it is, another piece of Euro 96 ephemera, safely secured and back here at Pod HQ.
Lovely stuff. Were there many bidders in that particular bidding war?
I believe I was the only bidder.
Well, that's everyone else's loss, isn't it? We bagged it. Well, I say we. On behalf of the pod, you have bagged it.
It's nearly the 30th anniversary of Euro 96. By the time the 60th anniversary comes around, I reckon that's going to be worth, north of £10.
Fingers crossed. Speaking of returns of food and drink that has been recently discovered, didn't you also discover a beverage that's made its welcome return to our supermarkets?
You're right. It's actually been a hell of a weekend for the return of 90s food and drink to the shelves. So I went to my local branch of B&M on Sunday in order to try and pick up some little bits and pieces for the car. And again, completely unawares, I was caught by a full stand, full to the brim, with catering-sized boxes of Reef, the popular citrus-based cocktail. And I had to be physically restrained from buying a box. I knew I wouldn't drink them, but it just felt like the right thing to do to buy them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's your natural instinct as a 90s nostalgist is to buy and to preserve, isn't it? So totally understandable that you felt like that, and it's a massively welcome return as far as I'm concerned, because Reef was the Greenwood drink of choice in circa 2003 to I'd say 4 or 5. So that is post 90s, I know, but I'm sure there'll be lots of 90s drinkers out there who will be equally excited by that return and be straw pedoing them all summer.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Right, I'm not cool enough. I hear this every so often. I don't actually know what straw pedo is. How do you do it? What does it involve?
Well, I say it as though I'm an expert. I've never done it myself, but it's when you basically you put a straw into a bottle, whether it's an Alco Pop or whatever it is, beer, and you put the straw so it goes right down to the bottom, and then you fold it over so basically the air can escape. So when you down it, it goes like straight down rather than like glugging, which makes it take longer. The way the fact that the air can escape means that you can do it really quickly. So
okay,
I think that's what it is anyway.
That makes sense. Well, anyway, as Wessex's finest 90s nostalgia podcast, we've delivered again. If you want to take it back to the 90s for a weekend, particularly in the Chippenham area, it's one stop for Top Deck and B&M for Reef. You heard it here first. And our final piece of correspondence for this episode comes from legend of the pod, Kate Pro, who actually mailed us a cassette tape with some voice notes on it, didn't she?
She did indeed, yes. It's always nice to get a voice note. I think as it stands, Kate Pro is the only person who's ever sent us a voice note, but we really welcome it. It's nice to hear your voices out there as listeners.
Definitely, yeah. Anything you want to send us. Obviously, there's some stuff we would have to work around, like getting the voice notes across on WhatsApp. So you'd have to get in touch with the pod, get a mobile number from somebody at the pod, and then do it that way. But, we're all good people, so I'm sure we can work it out. Yeah, if you ever want to send us in any voice notes, just get in touch and I'm sure we can sort it out one way or the other.
Yes, absolutely. And these voice notes, well, we'll play them now. So, Stu, here we go.
Yeah.
I am very sad about Stu's loss of love for the car boot sale, given he was such an avid fan. So my thought was perhaps we could do a live show, 90s pod car boot sale show, and look out for things that are from the 90s and go shopping. I just think that would be fun, and I'd like to go to a car boot sale because of all the chat about them. Stu saying get a stick to try and get something out of the tip made me think about another memory from the 90s, which was playing on a roundabout. You go into a park, lie down on a roundabout, each in a separate section, and you play pick up and dropsies. Was this just us? One person drops a stick, the roundabout goes round, one person picks it up, you say pick up dropsies. We did this all the time. Have we made it up or is it a thing? But that's what we did. And I'm very intrigued and would like Stu to explain why he spent his time in two different tips. I just don't understand. I do love a trip to the tip because I like getting rid of things that are no longer necessary. I like a tidy surrounding, but going to two, I can't understand. So I'd love an explanation, please, as to why he did that.
So, Stu, these seem to address you primarily. They certainly concern things you've addressed on previous episodes. What are your thoughts? What are your answers?
Indeed. First of all, if I can address a couple of these in turn. The tip trip where I went to two separate tips on the same morning, I have to clarify that this is to do with opening times. So what happened on that particular day was I already had a full car of stuff ready to go to the tip. My local tip in Chippenham wasn't open by then, but the tip in Melksham was. So I thought I will drive over to the Melksham tip, unload there, come back, do a second load, and then take that to Chippenham. And that's how I ended up going to two tips in the same morning. Simply a question of one opening an hour before the other for reasons that are unknown.
Okay, that clears that up.
And my other point here with regards to a live record at a car boot sale with Kate Pro in tow. Yes, please, anytime you like, we will all go down to Laycock Car Boot Sale, which is the car boot sale where I ended up having my tragic accident, falling into the Chaps Garden wall afterwards. And anytime you like, I'll be more than happy to wander around as a trio and see what 90s bargains and things we can find.
It's a deal. I can't wait. And then the final message, Kate, regarding I don't want to be rude, but the rather simple game of pick up and dropsies that you seem to play growing up. It's not something I'm familiar with. Stu, was it something you played?
No, I can't say I've ever heard of this. Although my local roundabout, which was in the Meriton Avenue playground, so not one that was immediately local to me, that roundabout got removed in about 1997, presumably due to a series of injuries, as happened at most of these playground roundabouts. So I never really actually played a lot on playground roundabouts, and as a result, this is probably why I've not heard of pick up and dropsy. What did strike me is that pick up and dropsy sounds quite a lot like it could sum up my goalkeeping career in 4 words. That was what struck me when I heard that sentence.
Yeah, it does sound like the sort of thing that led to the eventual shutting down and removal of all roundabouts from nationwide playgrounds, because, as we know, that was something that happened in the 90s. And yeah, children dangling their arms over the edge, trying to grab at sticks, distracting themselves by singing a theme tune to it. It's asking for trouble, isn't it? So thanks a lot for that, Kate. You ruined it for everyone.
I have to admit, when I first heard her voice note regarding roundabouts, and she opened with "when playing on a roundabout," I immediately thought of that she was just playing in the middle of a roundabout on like an A road. That was where I went, and then suddenly, I realised that she must be talking about playground roundabouts, and that was a silly idea.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think she grew up in northeast Bristol, so you do still see it occasionally. Groups of kids just on the, out on the ring road roundabouts.
Anything goes in northeast Bristol.
Time now for What's the Most 90s, and a big one, I think, for both of us here, Stu. What is the most 90s sports brand?
Well, I came up with 2, and one ran the other very closely for this. So I'm going to keep my second place just in case it comes up when you reveal your choice. But I have gone for Head, the Austrian tennis brand, or now Austrian-American tennis brand, as it turns out these days. A brand that seemed to be fairly present on the high street and in the playground back in those days. I remember a friend of the pod and our pop correspondent, Joe Barter, turning up for our first day of secondary school with a bright red Head rucksack. Which I really liked. I, of course, had the classic orange Umbro Italia. And I also had a Head tennis racket as well around that time, when we went to secondary school and started having to play sports that we hadn't done in primary school. So got hold of a Head tennis racket. So it's a brand that I closely associate with the mid to late 90s for those reasons. And yeah, it's not one that you sort of see so much anymore, apart from in the tennis arena. I think Novak Djokovic might still use Head rackets. And I think they're most prominent in the tennis and probably skiing world as well, I think. So not one that you tend to see on the high street these days. But yeah, I think I'm going for Head as my most 90s sports brand. What have you got?
Well, just on Head, yeah, I also had a Head tennis racket at school. So that sort of backs that up a little bit. And my tennis idol of the 90s and just about beyond was Goran Ivanisevic, who played with Head rackets, so I've always had a soft spot for the brand. And yeah, it's really, really heavily connected to tennis and tennis alone. Yeah, very one sport brand there. My brand is something that you don't see at all anymore, and that is Pony. So started in the 70s apparently when I looked it up, which was quite surprising, but then hit the mainstream in the late 80s, and then I think really came to prominence in the 90s. They obviously made some big football kits back in the 90s. There was a Norwich kit for a couple of seasons, and West Ham's famous Dagenham Motors kits were made by Pony. Spurs had one with their Hewlett-Packard kits. But then you'd also see it on some sportswear on the high street, maybe the odd T-shirt here and tracksuit bottoms, that sort of thing. But now you just don't see them at all. I think as soon as that millennium turned over, then they just sort of died a death. I looked online, and apparently they were bought out by another brand in 2015, but I've not heard anything since. I've not heard any confirmation that they've gone. They just seem to have disappeared without a trace, which is a shame, I think, because some of those kits were quite iconic of the decade. And that's why I've chosen them, really. Just disappeared without a trace very soon after the 90s ended. So, yeah, Pony.
I think we have 2 strong contenders here, but I think Pony might just edge it because they were, as you say, very prominent in mid to late 90s football kit design. And Southampton I'll put up as one as well that had a Pony kit around the time that Dimplex sponsored shirts, as I seem to recall. And yes, as you say, they seem to have all but disappeared these days. And we mentioned in the last episode Gary Neville's pony boots throughout Euro '96 as well, didn't we? As a rare example of a player wearing pony football boots. So yes, I think again you've chalked up another one over me, and Head will have to accept their second place here, because despite the fact that they are very much a '90s brand, they are still going and still going strong. And still producing tennis rackets and the like. So yeah, I think Pony might just edge it.
We should, of course, give a quick mention to the official sports brand of the pod, which is Ribeiro, who
of course
always in our hearts, and we don't want to forget them. But this time, I think it's got to go to Pony.
Well, Alex, it's been quite a food and drink heavy podcast so far, hasn't it? With all these mentions of things like Top Deck and Reef, and our sponsor for this episode being Wimpy.
It has, yes. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Well, in that case, then, for this episode, how about we discuss our favourite breakfasts, lunches, and dinners from the '90s with a returning special guest. It's brother of the pod, Adam Greenwood. Adam, good evening, mate.
Good evening. How are you both?
Hungry.
Very well, thanks. It's great to have you back on.
That we should say actually that this was actually Adam's idea. So. That isn't a policy of the pod. Give us an idea and you get invited on. It's just, it's on a case-by-case basis, and it was a great idea. So we're glad.
I can't claim full credit. I did steal it sort of from off menu. So
whoa.
Bleep that out, Stu.
Jeff does assure me, by the way, Adam, that your check is in the post.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay. All right. No worries. So just to explain a little bit more about the format of this episode before we launch into it, we have each thought back to our personal experiences of the '90s, and we've come up with our favourite breakfast, lunch and dinner from the period, with a couple of snacks and a few drinks thrown in there as well. So we're each going to be selecting some food and drink for those meal times. And we normally go guests first, don't we, Alex, when we do these sort of rotational episodes. So, Adam, I'll invite you to start us off with your favourite '90s breakfast.
Well, I had a few things that I was considering for this. I was sort of looking at Kellogg's banana bubbles, which I've never actually had. But when I was sort of doing my research, I saw pop up and I thought they sounded delicious in sort of like a very trashy way. But I think what I'm going to have to go with is either Honey Nut Loops or Corn Pops, but specifically taken from a variety pack.
The variety pack.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great shout.
That's also what I've gone for. So it was, hands down. When I say that, Stu, what have you gone for?
Well, I have gone for, actually, it is another Kellogg cereal, but I've gone for Kellogg Strike.
Okay, yes.
What are our thoughts on Kellogg Strike?
I vaguely remember that. What was it like? What shape were they?
So they were hoops, and it was pretty much a shameless attempt to cash in on the sort of link between football and Sugar Puffs that Sugar Puffs had generated for itself by that time with the adverts with Kevin Keegan and Peter Schmeichel, etc. When trying to do a bit of research on Kellogg Strike, I had to wade through quite a lot of stuff about the 2021 strike of Kellogg's factories across America. When
that's how they got the idea.
Yeah, possibly. But I found a couple of TV adverts which featured players of the time: Patrick Berger, Fabrizio Ravanelli, David Ginola is in the strike advert, and I think Dion Dublin and Dean Holdsworth appear as well. But on the box is Robbie Fowler in his England tracksuit top with a bowl of Kellogg Strike with the spoon hovering near his mouth. Free Merlin sticker promotion on that box as well. And one specific memory of Kellogg Strike is that one morning when having a bowl, I decided it would be fun to take one single milk-soaked hoop out of the bowl, climb up onto the kitchen counter and place it on top of the kitchen cupboard and just see how long it stayed there before my parents noticed.
Is it still there?
Well, I have to tell you, they had the kitchen removed and renovated about 8 or 9 years ago, and I'm not sure that they ever found it.
Are you sure they didn't have to do it because of that? And they hadn't rotted
they just rotted through,
away, yeah.
So I would imagine somewhere there is still a piece of chipboard with a single Kellogg Strike O welded to it that would never come off, even if the nuclear bomb does hit. It will never ever be separated from that piece of chipboard. So yeah, Kellogg Strike for me.
I have a quick question, Alex. If we're both going from the variety pack, which of us gets to pick first? Because there's not going to be two that we both want, is there? Or
well,
are you going to take Honey Nut Loops and I take Corn Pops, or what's your ranking from the variety?
I think my number one choice is from the variety pack is going to be Ricicles. So I don't think we have to worry about treading on each other's toes for that first box. I'd tried to formulate a dream variety pack, and because I think you get 8. Is that right? You get 8 boxes in a variety pack. It's not 10, is it? It's 8, I think.
It is 8, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got Honey Nut Loops, Ricicles, Smacks, Frosties, and Cocoa Pops. And I'd completely forgotten about Corn Pops, but that's a great shout because they were everywhere.
Would they have been in the variety pack?
No, I don't think so, because
they were so big you probably only get 8 in a box.
Yeah.
Were they like sort of bright yellow balls of corn?
Yeah.
Is that what Corn Pops were? What I would probably refer to from a bit later on as golden nuggets, if you remember those.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. Okay, right. Just so I can picture them. Right.
There was a massive advertising campaign for them. I just remember them being on TV all the time, but then they didn't really survive for very long. Another thing, they wouldn't be in a variety pack because it's not Kellogg's, but Start I think of as being very 90s. And I think all cereal has fallen foul of the new regulations for the amount of sugar that can be in food. And Kellogg's, I know, cut down all the sugar that was in their cereal, hence why Ricicles disappeared. I just think it's a crime. Like, I don't want to sound like a sort of a libertarian who thinks that everyone should be able to do what they want. We should all be able to smoke and all that sort of stuff. But just let us live. Come on, it's up to us if we want to eat. It's up to 5-year-olds as well if they want to eat like cereal that's 50% sugar. That's just part of growing up. It's not done us any harm, I don't think.
It's yet more solid evidence that we should move the podcast and all of its operations to America, where we would be able to eat that amount of sugar for breakfast every day.
Yeah. And I mean, while I'm on this soapbox, have you looked at Variety recently? Have
Cereal
you seen
box.
what's on offer? Yes. Yeah, exactly. While I'm on the cereal box, it's crap. It's 2 Rice Krispies, maybe 3, 2 cornflakes, and 2 Cocoa Pops. Well, it's basically just those ones, and then they somehow make it into 8 different boxes. It's absolutely farcical.
I remember there being 1 box of bran flakes in a variety pack, which was always the one that I left until last. Always.
Of course, yeah.
Was not interested in bran flakes.
Why was that even in there? Who was going to want, unless you're the sort of person who's like, right, this day is the opposite of a treat day where I'm going to have the most, like pedestrian cereal available.
Possibly. Possibly.
Maybe it's for the whole family. So say the kids would have the Ricicles, the parents would have the cornflakes, and then the grandparents would have the brown flakes to stay regular. That's how they would. Variety packs would sort of cater for the whole family in one go.
Maybe, yeah. Never really thought about that.
Absurd portions. Everyone thought they were absurd portions. It's like a quarter of a bowl at best, isn't it? Anyway.
So, sorry, can I just straighten something out here? Are you a fan of the variety pack or not?
I'm a fan of the old variety pack when I'm 7 years old and my appetite is not as big, I suppose. That's what it comes down to.
And it's full of sugar.
Yes.
Do you remember Nesquik cereal?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The little sort of, I'm assuming they don't make it anymore. But like I always thought it was strange that the mascot was a rabbit, but the cereals very closely resembled rabbit droppings. I thought maybe I don't know if anyone in the marketing department thought, is this going to make a difference to people's appetite for this cereal? Or
I've never thought of that, but actually, yeah, it definitely is.
I mean, I was thinking it. I remember thinking it and still eating it, so it obviously didn't put me off that much. I was obviously just desperate for the sugar.
You would have eaten rabbit droppings if they were that sugary, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Well, moving on to drinks, if that's okay. My drink actually is Nesquik. Probably the banana one, although I wouldn't say no to strawberry. I wouldn't stir it properly either. I'd have it so there was still quite a lot of the residual sort of crystals at the bottom. So when I finished drinking it, I could eat them with a spoon. I'm going to be buzzing for a long time on what I'm having for breakfast, but that's my choice anyway.
Well, I can only wish that I'd been allowed to add Nesquik to my morning glass of milk. Mine would have been just a regular common or garden glass of milk for all of the goodness to set you up for the school day. It was definitely, I mean, there was obviously milk in my Kellogg's Strike, but then there was extra milk in the glass next to it as well. So lots of milk going on in the morning for me. Just a regular glass of milk.
What about you, Adam?
I would probably have just been having orange juice, but given the choice, I would have gone for either Nesquik or Yop.
Well, save that. I've got more to say on that in a minute.
Put a pin in Yop.
Yeah. I think I need to clarify, my choices are not what I was having for breakfast in the 90s. There's no way I would have been allowed this for my regular breakfast. This is more a sort of dream breakfast of the 90s, and the things I've collated, all the things I would have either loved at the time or would have loved to have tried. Shall we move on to snacks then? A mid-morning snack?
I initially thought of the Nutri-Grain bar, but that although I think a fair amount of those, I remember that it was really only in times of sort of desperation, like if I couldn't get anything better. So what I'm going to go for is a Whisper Gold bar.
A much missed chocolate bar, isn't it? It came up the other day. I think it was a listener of the pod, Lou, suggested it as a most 90s chocolate bar.
I think I might have said this the last time Whisper Gold came up and we discussed it as a much missed chocolate bar. It's not much missed. You can still get them. Am I the only one who sees this, or is there some sort of?
I always forget. Yes, you have very different suppliers over there in Northwest Wiltshire, don't you? Where you can still get Reef and like Boddingtons and stuff.
Exactly that. Top Deck, for instance.
Yeah, so, Top Deck. Yeah. It's just stocks that haven't quite run out yet over there, I think.
So my mid-morning snack, again, this is very specific. I am going for 2 digestive biscuits and some orange juice in a plastic cup. Which was... No, I am just in year 3. So this was what was given to us at our mid-morning break. We used to get 2 biscuits and a cup of orange juice for mid-morning break up until a certain age. At Caution Primary. So yeah, I would have had those for a long time. And again, I think I mentioned this on the pod before, but I remember Mr. Priest, our head teacher, coming into our classroom having just been to the cash and carry to get the biscuits and the orange juice. And as he was leaving our classroom, he'd come in for some reason and he'd announced that he'd just been there. And as he was leaving the classroom, I said, I'd like to have seen the receipt for that because I knew how much that they'd had to buy. And he said, well, I've got it here. And he got it out of his pocket, and it was like on TV when they just hold the top bit of the paper and it just rolls down. And it reached the floor from his outstretched arm. And I've never, ever forgotten that he just got this sheet out and said, there it is. And it just rolled down to the floor. So absolutely superb. I'll always remember Mr. Priest for that. And two digestives, has to be digestives, not chocolate, just regular. 2 digestives and a plastic cup of orange juice, please.
Lovely. I had a very similar thing when I was at playgroup. Well, that would have been the late.
What are you trying to say?
But if we're talking about biscuits from the 90s, I think this isn't my choice. But do you remember Lincoln biscuits? You cannot buy them anymore. I think they stopped in, I guess, the 90s. But you could get them in like amongst all the digestives and the shortbreads, just in the supermarket aisle. But you don't get them anymore.
What differentiated them from like a malted milk or like a rich tea?
They did look a bit like a malted milk, but they were round and they were like cobblestones all over the top, and they were just a fairly standard biscuit. If anyone listening remembers them, do let me know. Just reassure me that I haven't imagined them. But
I'm not about to lambaste you and say that Lincoln biscuits are widely available, because no, I don't think they are on this occasion. I think you might be right.
Okay, good. My choice is going to be a liquid snack. It's going to be a drinking yogurt. So obviously, Adam, you referred to Yop earlier, and I told you to hold up for fear of stealing my drinking yogurt thunder. But I didn't used to get Yop. I don't know when Yop came in, but I used to get from M&S, the one in Bath where Stu you threw up in your mum's hands that time. I used to get a little carton of own brand drinking yogurt. It came in like a little square kind of milk carton, and it was the best thing ever. And again, you just can't. I don't think you can buy drinking yogurt aside from Yop, which I assume you can still get, right? Yop.
Yeah, so, yeah. Yop is another one you can still get. Yeah.
Yeah. I was expecting that, but own brand M&S, that was the absolute the nectar, and I loved it. It's very much in the shadow of milkshake, the drinking yogurt, and maybe that's why it's died out somewhat. But that's what I'm having. It reminds me of shopping trips to to Bath with my mum preschool, I think, or at least primary school age, and that very happy memory.
Can I change my earlier Yop to one of those drinking yogurts? Because I like those as well. And I always thought they were from Boots for some reason, not M&S.
Oh yeah, they could have been from Boots. Yeah, we'll both have it then. That's fair enough.
Yeah, I think a drinking yogurt is like the thinking man's milkshake anyway. I think it's sort of like a sign. It points to our sort of superior intellectualism.
Okay, so we've had our breakfast and our mid-morning snacks. Now, you wouldn't think that there would be any room for anything else, but we are now quickly approaching lunchtime. So again, Adam, what have we got for your 90s lunch?
My 90s lunch, I have a very, well, not very distinct. I have a memory of going to a theme park called Pleasurewood Hills as a child and having an American all-day breakfast there, and it would have been the first time I ever had a potato waffle. And it blew my tiny mind, and I sort of feel like I've forever been chasing that breakfast dragon since then.
I remember that. I also remember that breakfast. It was so exotic, an American all-day breakfast and waffles. It was like one giant chip with holes in it. It was incredible.
I was saying, being in that setting as well obviously makes it more exciting. Being at a theme park at that age.
There's definitely something special about theme park food, isn't there? Theme park food, fun fair food, anything like that. It's bound to be special and stir some memories. And that sounds absolutely brilliant, I have to say. It really does.
For my lunch, I am having I think I'm going to use a loaf of mighty white bread with this is with the boy logo. I think he looks a bit like the Milky Bar Kid. Maybe it was the Milky Bar Kid grown up or something. I don't know, but. Yeah, so a loaf of mighty white bread, and I'm going to have with that, I'm going to go down to the supermarket and go to their cheese pick and mix section. Do you remember that? You could get like a Baby Bell, maybe a little sausage of smoked cheese. I think you could get a round of goat's cheese or something like that, and maybe Dairy. So I'm going to go there, get the pick and mix. I'm going to have with that a packet of Walker's cheese on toast crisps, which were around in the late 80s and early 90s. Came in a yellow packet, very short-lived. And then I'm going to finish it off with a Fiendish Feet yogurt, which is one of the yogurts that had the little legs on the bottom and the faces on them. And that's going to do me, I think.
I had completely forgotten about the cheese pick and mix.
Yeah, it didn't last very long, I don't think.
Yeah, but it felt like a big deal at the time.
That's something that needs to come back, isn't it? Cheese pick and mix. I'd be there every week when I went to the supermarket. Blimey.
Maybe that's why they had to get rid of it, because it was just like the queues were too long. It was. Stu, what are you having for lunch?
Again, I've gone quite specific. So I'm going from the age of about 8 onwards here, when I would need to stay with my nan and granddad down the road during the day, when my mum and dad were obviously working over the school holidays. And for lunch, pretty much every day for about 5 years during the school holidays, I had, without fail, a bacon baguette, with the bacon done in the microwave, crucially, not grilled, microwaved, with ketchup, and a small can of Canada Dry ginger ale. That was my lunch for a long time while I was on school holiday. Sometimes we would alternate it with tuna if there was any worries that I was eating too much bacon. But I was at an age where I was going out all day and running around the park with my friends. Obviously, the Springfield across the road, with people like Sam Siddick, who lived down the road, and Katie Smith, who was my pen pal who would visit from London. I was burning all that bacon fat off pretty quickly. But I was completely addicted to the bacon baguette for a long time during the 90s. And I have no hesitation in picking this for my lunch, because that is genuinely what I had for the lion's share of the time.
Canada Dry seems like quite a sophisticated drink for someone so young.
My nan and granddad basically just used to have this in to use as a mixer with whiskey or whatever. But then I just got a taste for it, and I enjoyed drinking ginger ale on its own, and I still do from time to time if I can get hold of it. Just a little can, like the pick and mix cans that you still get in the supermarket, if you know the size I'm talking about. So they would always have a slab of those in, and I would have a little Canada Dry with my bacon baguette as well. So yeah, as you say, very sophisticated.
It could just as easily have gone the other way, and it could have been a bitter lemon, maybe.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah.
For my tonic water, just loads of tonic water. the drink I'm choosing is far less sophisticated. It's the opposite end of the spectrum because it's a can of Umbongo, the greatest of all the cartoned drinks of the 90s.
Of course.
Sadly missed. Unless you're going to tell me, Stu, that it still exists, in which case, why haven't you already told me? There was a period about 10 years ago where I was just looking everywhere for it, like some sort of crazed addict. But yeah, it's gone now, sadly.
Trust me, if ever I saw Umbongo on the shelves anywhere, you would be the first to know, and I would purchase some for you immediately and have it shipped to your compound without delay.
Thank you, very much appreciated. I'm pretty sure they only sell it in the Congo now, but I'm not sure about that. Adam, what are you drinking for lunch?
I've got a few choices. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to settle on, but I think I am going to go for a Tab Clear, just because the combination of having potato waffles for the very first time and a Tab Clear for the very first time would have absolutely rocked my world. The idea that something that had such a strong flavor could be completely clear and devoid of color would have, it still sort of boggles my mind now to think about it.
Yeah, totally. I remember having that exact same feeling with Perfectly Clear, which was, a good name for it. But I couldn't understand how you could get that much flavor from something clear, at the risk of sounding like I'm doing their advert for them. But it did blow my mind as well.
I've not had the pleasure of either Tab Clear or Perfectly Clear, I have to say, but I know Tab from The Simpsons because Homer orders a tab when he's working from home and presses the tab key on his keyboard and then holds the cup up to the disk drive. So what flavour was Tab Clear?
It was like a cola. I think there was like I always thought that Tab was like an offshoot of Coke, but I think it might have been its own thing, because I think there was also like Pepsi Crystal or Coke Clear or something. I think they had their own versions of it at the time.
There was a craze for just making all the drinks clear in the early to mid 90s, I think, which is subsequently died out, and they realized it's okay to have color in your drinks.
That was a very 90s thing, wasn't it, to have either clear drinks or sort of translucent plastic on something like a Game Boy that had like a see-through case, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
that feels very 90s.
Yeah, the translucent decade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on this mythical 90s day of days, we've barely stopped eating. It doesn't seem like there's actually been anything else that we've done other than just eat. So we're now up to our post-lunch snack, the bridging snack in between lunch and dinner. Then I'm assuming this is sort of the after-school period. So you're getting home at about 3:30. CBBC or CITV, in my case, of course, goes on, and you're looking for something to watch that with. So what have we got, Adam? Again,
for this, I'm going for another thing which has been discontinued, and I think wrongly so. It's cheese flavored kettle chips. I can't remember if it was called just mature cheddar or something else, but there was no onion involved. It was just cheddar, like cheese flavored kettle chips, and I still think they're probably the nicest crisps I've ever had. So yeah, some of those.
I think they were the first high-end chip to come to this country, weren't they? Like, it was a revolution. It was the start of the revolution. Now everywhere you look, it's all Tyrrells and Burts and whatnot. But back then, it was just Walkers, and that was it. And then this mysterious big packet. It was the first thing you could get in a big packet as well, I think.
Possibly, yeah.
Prior to that, it had just been all multi-packs, and you had to just... I guess adults, when they had like drinks and nibbles, they would just have to get a multi-pack and just open loads of packs and put them into a bowl or something. Like, it was unheard of to have a big bag, and now I don't eat anything other than that. But those cheese ones, I also remember them. Came in a yellow bag. They were like bright orange, the actual crisps, weren't they? Because they were so well flavored.
Yeah, I remember the first time I encountered them was at like our parents at a friend's house, and trying them at this bowl and thinking that they were so good that I had sort of anxiety around the fact that I knew I shouldn't just stand here eating all of these crisps, but I also didn't want to stop eating all of these crisps. So sort of sweating and eating crisps, just mainlining them.
I remember the same dinner party. It's amazing how, I guess food is one of those things. Maybe it's because it's connected to smell, but it's really easy to be nostalgic about and to just remember just specific memories when you first tried things. It's great for memory making food.
I've also gone down the crisp route. and this is a bag of Walkers from a multi-pack, indeterminate flavour. It could be any flavour that was in the pack. But that was normally what I would grab, again, at my nan's house. So my nan was on the way home from primary school for me. So when my mum would come and walk me home, and obviously in later years, then when I started walking myself home, we would normally end up there first, and I would normally go in and help myself to a bag. And like I say, it would just be CITV on and watch the first half there, and then get home for the second half. And a bag of multi-pack Walkers would be my companion for that. It doesn't sound half as exciting as the cheese kettle chips, I have to say. But still, that's what it was.
Can I suggest that you maybe treat yourself to having a little prize inside that multi-pack, a little blue envelope with a voucher for another packet of crisps in there?
Yes, please. You can certainly suggest that. Yeah, I will take that. Thank you very much. That's wonderful.
God, yeah. The blue packets. I remember then everyone tricking other people by when they got salt and shake, they'd take the salt packet out and sneak it into someone else's bag and be like, "Oh, look, you've won." And then they'd open it up and it would just be a little bit of salt. Classic.
I have a very strong memory related to crisp bag prizes. You don't get the prize in the bag of crisps anymore, do you? It's normally now just a QR code that you have to scan and put an email address in, and then it will tell you whether you've won or not, which is a shame, because the blue sachet was always really exciting. But I remember eating a bag, and this must have been around the time of the Phantom Menace coming out. So we're creeping probably into the early 2000s here, but I was eating a promotional pack of Walkers, watching the TV, not looking at the crisps, and then I chewed down on a prize sachet because I picked it up and attempted to eat it. And then I won a Jar Jar Binks head, which had like a long sticky tongue that you could like throw at the wall and stick at the wall. And that came from the prize sachet that I nearly ate. So there you go.
Right, I'm changing my snack last minute because the mention of CBBC and CITV has reconjured this memory. I'm going to have a frozen homemade ice lolly, which is made from instant whip, poured into one of those molds that you get. You can make your own ice lollies with. You put them in the freezer. Because this was something that we had in our household through summer, obviously. Very clear memories of coming home after school, either watching Adam play Toki on the Amiga while I ate my strawberry instant whip ice lolly, or watching Wimbledon, which would obviously have been on right around this time of year because we're currently in Wimbledon.
We would have been fuming if Wimbledon had been on, because we would have not been able to watch CBBC.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely livid that there was something on that we couldn't watch.
Yeah,
there was only one thing worse than missing CBBC for Wimbledon, and that was missing CBBC for the budget.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Once a year they would take it off so they could talk about the budget that had been announced that day, and that was always a black day for kids TV, definitely.
Opposite end of the spectrum, isn't it, from like Get Your Own Back?
Yeah.
In terms of pure enjoyment.
There's a few of those politicians I wouldn't have minded dunking in the gunge on the Get Your Own Back set.
Right, what are we having to drink?
Sorry, I'm still reeling from Stu's impression of a satirist.
Can I go first? Because I've got something of my own creation here.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So what I used to do, a friend of mine, Matt Coe, had also done the same thing. I can't remember what his was called or what the ingredients were, but we had both sort of independently come up with our own cocktails when we were about 9 or 10. And mine was called the Soprendo, and it consisted of sort of most of the glass was Sunny Delight. A bottle of Sunny Delight, there's sort of, an individual bottle of Sunny Delight. You would pour that into the glass. Then you would have your aforementioned small can of ginger ale, which you would then pour in there. And I don't know why I did this, but because it would have almost immediately negated the fizzy effect of the ginger ale. But then I topped the rest up with tap water, which was a bizarre move, it has to be said.
It's an underused ingredient in the cocktail, isn't it? Tap water.
Yeah, tap water. Yeah, you want to get that fluoride in there. It's a really, really important part of the cocktail. So the Soprendo was a drink that I came up with, and I would have made a lot around this time, probably on the post-school CITV beat. So yeah, I've brought the old Soprendo back for this purpose.
It's a great name.
I think I must have picked it up. Was there a magician called the Soprendo or the Great Soprendo or something like that?
Yeah, the Great Soprendo. Yeah.
There you go. So I've probably picked it up off TV and just liked the word and used that. Yeah, I would say. But still, as you say, I'll give myself some credit. It's a good name for a cocktail. I'm glad you like it.
I didn't realise I was going to get an extra drink, because that's good news for me, because I can bring in one of the things I was potentially going to have to drop from my roster. I'm going for a rhubarb and custard flavoured Panda Pop, which I don't know. I feel like I've said this every time. I don't know if you can make them, if you can buy them anymore, but it tasted exactly like rhubarb and custard. I never really understood how you could have a drink or one thing which tasted so clearly of two separate things at the same time. It's pure innovation.
That's not a Panda Pop flavour that I was really aware of, I have to say. Immediately when I think of Panda Pop, I think of blue raspberry. That's the first one that I go to. I'm assuming the rhubarb and custard was red?
I think it was sort of pink colour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Rhubarb and custard is a flavour I'm particularly fond of. So if I could get hold of one of them right now, I'd be all over it. That and a Soprendo, it'd be a hell of a night.
A chaser, yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, my drink is also a Panda. It's a Panda lemonade, a can of Panda lemonade, recently discovered on thecanmuseum.com, as discussed on the previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
So it did exist. It wasn't just in my mind. And I'm going to have one of them out of the vending machine at Springfield, ideally. So maybe after swimming or something, I'll have that. And yeah, a taste of the swimming pool in a good way.
A snack after a swim is like nothing else, isn't it? It just hits slightly differently. Yeah, chlorine's like a really good palate cleanser, maybe.
Yeah.
That rehydration is absolutely key after exercise, and a great drink to do it with. I presume you would have gone for a small tube of Frosties as well.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if I would have been allowed them, because they were so. It was that combination of like hard, sugar coated, and really, really sticky. It was like the worst thing you could have for your teeth, but they were delicious.
They were, and only 10p. I mean,
Yeah,
what more could you want?
Shall we move on to dinner then? Let's get this wrapped up. Almost time for bed.
Yes, absolutely. Can I go first this time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I dare say that the dinner time offerings at my parents' house haven't changed that much in the last 30 years. I think if I went round there and had dinner for a whole week, I would have quite a few of the things that I used to have in the back in the 90s. They're not the most adventurous with their menu, but what I've gone for is crispy pancakes, chips and beans. Solid, no frills. We never had anything like sort of bolognese or anything like that, any of the sort of staple meals that you would probably get in other households. And I feel like I should say at this point, I am in no way slagging off my parents here for that, because I enjoyed almost everything that they gave me for my dinner around this time. I'm just saying it as it was back in the day. This also is a time that evokes memories for me, especially during high summer as we've got now, of after having had my multi-pack bag of Walkers and having got home, heading then straight out to the park to play, being called home for my dinner, eating my dinner as fast as I could, and then going back out to play. And it was always in my mind's eye something like crispy pancakes, chips and beans. So that's why I've gone for that. And really, it's amazing that I'm as healthy as I am now, bearing in mind the diet that I grew up on.
Is that Findus crispy pancakes?
It would have been, yes, yeah, it definitely would have been, and there would have been a meat filling as well.
I don't even know what they look like, let alone what they taste like. I've never seen them outside of a packet, I don't think. What does it look like? What is it?
If you can imagine a Cornish pasty with breadcrumbs on it, and then it's about 3 times as small. Yeah, okay. that is how I would describe a crispy pancake, how it looks. I mean, yeah, I used to love it. I think this is actually one of the rare things that we've discussed on this podcast that you can still get. I think you can still get a crispy pancake. So we've discussed this before. We've discussed creating a vegan version of the crispy pancake for the vegan market. I'm sure we have. So
we have.
Yeah, that'd be good to get that going finally.
Well, Findus yet to act, as far as I can tell.
Haven't responded to our emails.
No. My dinner is actually very similar, I think. It's bird's eye fish fingers with spaghetti shapes, so maybe the Thomas the Tank Engine ones, and then oven chips in the shape of letters, which I think are called Alpha Bites, maybe, is one brand. So yeah, very similar to you, I think. Similar food groups for sure. And I'm also going to finish it off with some Swiss roll.
Oh, fantastic.
I think you can definitely still get Swiss roll. I'm not claiming you can't, but I think it was at its peak popularity in the 90s before new fancy desserts came along. Yeah, go ahead, Adam. What's your dinner?
I was tempted to go with breakfast pizza, which was something I would have had for the first time in the 90s, I think, from a supermarket where they sort of put beans, and I'm not even sure what else would have been on the top of it. I just remember there being baked beans and sort of being probably sausage and bacon as well, thinking about it. But that's not what I've gone for. I've gone for fish and chips, specifically eaten sat in the car with sports report on the radio and the windows sort of starting to get all like foggy.
Oh, yes, please.
By the seaside.
Absolutely.
I think you've won. I think you've won it.
James Alexander Gordon reading out the results.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. So would this have been, I know you were regulars in the sort of Norfolk, Suffolk area around this time. Is this where we're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, either there or St David's, I think are the two places that I sort of most associate with that.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I've got many fond memories of the Sports Report theme tune myself, coming home from whatever non-league ground myself and my dad had been to that afternoon. That was always the first choice on the radio, so that evokes strong memories for me as well. And to add fish and chips in there as well, oh yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. What I will say is I'm sort of glad you've gone away from the breakfast pizza, because that then would have made your choices cereal for breakfast, an all-day breakfast for lunch, and a breakfast pizza for dinner.
Most important meal of the day. So if you can have it 3 times a day, then you're getting 3 times the importance, I guess.
You can't argue with that logic, can you? You cannot. That's why you're where you are and I'm where I am. You can't argue with that logic.
And what about drinks? I'll go first. I'm having Sainsbury's Geo, a glass of Sainsbury's Geo from the big 2-litre bottle, poured out from the fridge, nice and cold. Better than Sprite.
It's our official carbonated drink of the pod, isn't it, Sainsbury's Geo?
I think well, it's between that and Sunkist. Sunkist fell out of favour when they stopped replying to my emails.
Yeah.
Stopped replying to your emails. So were you in correspondence with them for a while?
There was some correspondence going on Twitter, and then when they realised I was in the UK, they stopped responding, I think.
Well, maybe we need to revisit that. If there's more chance of us getting Geo back on the shelves, then maybe we need to have a look at changing that.
Yeah.
I've also gone for a Sainsbury's own brand drink out of a 2-litre bottle from the fridge, and it's Sainsbury's Classic Cola. So this is my dinner time drink of choice. I'm sure I've told you about my Year 4 teacher, Mrs. Johnson's addiction to Sainsbury's Classic Cola. Seems to be a lot of stuff coming up in this episode that we've already discussed. So I won't go over that again. But yeah, for much the same reasons, Alex. Just a different Sainsbury's drink, Classic Cola.
I'm going to go for Lilt, but specifically how it used to taste, because I feel like it stopped tasting the same at some point. Probably some E numbers or something was taken out of it at a certain point, but I remember it tasting much nicer in the 90s.
Back when Lilt was Lilt, which might become my catchphrase, actually.
Well, we've got an episode title at the very least.
Yeah. It's another beverage company that's fallen out of favour with this podcast ever since it changed to Fanta and got rebranded.
So we've covered then our dream 90s day in food. Is there anything that anyone's got there, little odd bits and pieces that haven't been covered yet that they want to mention?
If I could actually just mention a quick memory, and this has been sparked by the way Adam just described to fish and chips. If I'm going to distill a 90s food sort of feeling and memory, it would be winter evenings. The final program on CBBC has just ended. Maybe it's Blue Peter and the credits are rolling. It's dark outside. I can hear the sounds of Big Ben bonging on the radio for the start of PM on Radio 4, which my parents would be listening to in the kitchen. The windows are all steaming up, and the unmistakable smell of jacket potatoes in the oven is wafting through the house. And that is basically the memory and the feeling I have of 90s, especially early 90s dinner time for me is distilled into that. And baked potatoes in the oven is still one of my top 3 favorite smells of all time, I think, because of that memory. So that's a distillation of my 90s dinner times. I'm not getting emotional, it's just phlegm. So
there's the episode title.
But yes, that's a distillation of my 90s dinner times, and I feel like I just needed to get that in for no one's benefit but my own, really. But now it's on wax, it's recorded.
That's wonderful. It's just a shame that it made you sick.
I'm sort of connected. Is a memory that I've got, or of something we used to have regularly, which I only relatively recently, as an adult, realized was not like a universally accepted or known dish, was tuna gunge. You know, when you sort of grow up thinking that something's totally normal because your family does it or calls it that, and then you only find out much later that it's not, and of course it isn't, because that name is not what you would call any sort of food dish.
We're back to Dave Benson Phillips again, aren't we? Okay, so what were the, apart from tuna, of course, what are the components of a tuna gunge?
It was sort of mashed potato and then tuna and cheese like mixed together. So it was just like a big sort of plate of mashed potato with this sort of white sauce and cheese and tuna sort of like stirred into it.
Oh, actually sounds quite appetizing.
It was quite nice, yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, I didn't discover in an embarrassing way. I didn't sort of go into a restaurant and say, do you think the chef could make me some tuna gunge or something like that? But yeah, I was quite old when I realized, it occurred to me that was not like, that was just something that our family called it.
I'd like to fit in an extra snack if I could, please, and this is specific to a particular day of the week. So Friday evening was always big food shop evening. So after school, my dad would arrive home from work and then whisk us away, normally to one of the supermarkets in Chippenham. But once every 4 or 5 weeks, my mum would say she wanted to go to the Tesco Superstore in Trowbridge, which I always hated because it took longer to get there, longer to get back, and it meant I wasn't home in time for The Simpsons at 6 o'clock. So that was always a consideration for going to Tesco in Trowbridge. But on most occasions, I would bring back from the food shop for Friday evening consumption a small pot of Hartley's jelly, normally raspberry or blackcurrant, and also a Lucozade, like sort of foil pouch.
Oh,
do you know the thing I mean? The sort of thing I mean.
Like a Capri Sun.
Indeed, yes, yeah. That you used to be able to get with the plastic straw built into it. You would twist the cap off and then And they, again, something that is much missed, and I would definitely still be drinking those if they manufacture them. Normally orange, sometimes lemon, and I'd be able to treat myself to a Lucozade pouch as well, and look like Mark Posnich on a Friday, going around the house sucking on my Lucozade pouch. So yeah, that was just something that I wanted to fit in there as well. Was the jelly and Lucozade Fridays, which presumably was just to try and keep me quiet while they dragged me to Trowbridge.
Sounds a bit like you're recovering in hospital. That's that sort of time.
Well, he's on jelly and Lucozade at the moment. Well, that brings to a close our Fantasy 90s food days. There's some absolutely fantastic stuff there. Some stuff that I'm definitely going to think about trying. Tuna gunge for one, and a lot of stuff that is, dearly missed and dearly beloved, and we'll just have to keep alive in our memories, like the Lucozade pouch, etc. So, Adam, thanks once again for joining us on the pod and talking us through that. Can you give us a little insight into how Jimmy's Crickets are going at the moment, of course, which the podcast sponsors?
Well, I think we're currently second in the league, so we are in great danger of getting promoted at the end of the season, and then sort of losing every game in the middle league. So yeah, fingers crossed for a couple of bad results to keep us sort of nice in the pleasant, easy league.
Okay, excellent to hear. Things are going well. And what about the Jimmy's Cricket Euro 2024 sweepstake as well? Because I believe Alex and I, as your title sponsors, might actually be in with a chance here.
Yeah, you have Spain, so you are in with a very high chance of winning. I haven't looked to see who has the remaining teams, but yeah, you are in with a very high chance of taking home that sweet cash.
Well, Jeff's going to want to sort of take care of that, isn't he? And then feed it back into pod funds and do what he does. So I doubt we're actually going to see a penny, are we?
By the time he's washed it, it'll be pennies.
Adam, lovely to have you on the pod once again. Will you come back again soon and talk to us about a different 90s topic?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'd love to.
Fantastic. Look forward to having you back on then. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Well, we fairly rattled through our dream 90s days of food and drink there, didn't we? I think what I enjoyed really in the end was not so much speaking about the foods themselves, but more the memories that they evoked, especially, Adam at the theme park and also in the car listening to Sports Report with the fish and chips. That was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing how evocative food is when it comes to nostalgia and memories of our childhoods.
If any of our listeners want to draft up their dream 90s days of food and drink and let us know so that we can read them out on the pod, Alex, how can they get in touch with us?
They can go onto our link tree, which will be linked to below, and that gives links to our Twitter and our Instagram and our email address and our YouTube channel. So just log on there and get in touch because I want to know what everyone thinks of our choices and also your own choices as well. We'd love to hear from you.
Please do get in touch and don't forget to mail us those cassettes as well with your voice notes on. Next time on the pod, I am on holiday. Alex is minding the shop himself, and he's going to have a couple of guests in to talk about one of his favourite 90s TV shows, aren't you?
I am, yes. This is the one I have been waiting for a long time because this is the Dawson's Creek episode, and I am going to be speaking to Keith from the Dawsons Black podcast and also a friend of the pod, Kathryn from the Dawson's Weekly podcast, and we are going to be breaking down the greatest teen drama of all time, Dawson's Creek, and talking about all the best episodes, the best moments, the best characters, and all that sort of stuff, and generally getting a bit misty-eyed about all of the nostalgia. So, yes, tune in if you're a fan of Dawson's Creek, and if you're not, tune in anyway, because you'll be a fan of it by the time you finish listening to the episode.
I can't wait to listen to that. I can't wait to hear what happens when you get unleashed in the studio without my calming presence around.
It's going to be carnage.
So that's it for this time. Until next time when Alex discusses Dawson's Creek with Keith and Kathryn, it's goodbye from me. I'm just off to get hold of some Sunny D, some Canada Dry and some tap water, mix myself a Soprendo.
And I'm just off to continue my desperate search for a carton of Umbongo.
England 4, Netherlands 1. You heard it here first. See you next time.
Goodbye.